MediaWiki documentation server. So I did a video a while back, and we've been using this for a while. And as we use things, we always add tools, modify, change the way we're doing things. So this is a August 2017 update of how we're using the server. I was against, and my employees were for, using a WYSIWYG interface on top of it. So we loaded the WYSIWYG. I gotta admit, I kind of like it, but I still dropped to the code because, I don't know, I like the formatting of the Wiki markup language, which just, I don't know, I'm more of a code guy, so it's easier for me. But maybe not everybody likes that. It also does have the ability to very easily paste spreadsheets into here, which is kind of a huge factor for the way we accumulate a lot of data that we may need. For example, when we do an entire network scan and the results of that scan we may want to keep in a customer file, well, that is kind of handy to do when you're doing a long list. That it makes it a lot easier with the WYSIWYG. So we're going to show you some of the modifications we've done to the system. I will talk a little bit about installing the visual editor. People have asked me about showing how to set up the MediaWiki. I probably could do a video on it, but the reality is the instructions are really good. The only problem I ran into is the passing the cookies part, and I'll throw that in there. It's really easy to do. It's just the one part I missed. And the reason I missed it, because when most of the documentation, most wikis are open to the public. This isn't open to the public. It's not available online. This is internally hosted with a self-signed certificate and then has a series of rules through the firewall because it's on a separate network that only certain computers are even allowed to get to or visibly see the machine. That being said, we still require login, as you can see right here in the back, login required to get anywhere, and we have two-factor authentication put on this. So I'm going to go ahead and log in and show you the MediaWiki and some of what we're doing with it. Some things will be blurred out because this is our production one, but I didn't feel like spinning up a duplicate copy with a bunch of fake data just for the video. I'm just going to blur out the client stuff. So you can see that I can't see anything, recent changes, help, whatever. There's nothing you can get to without logging in. So everything starts with the login. Then the two-factor token, and now we're on the main page. And we actually have our main page set up to have recent changes that were made, because often if you're editing a client or actively working on it, those recent changes are often, you go right back into the same client, go, I added this, oh, I added this, kind of those save along the way type things that we do. Now, that's pretty easy to do, and I'll show you the source for this real quick. All you have to do is add the word special pages, recent changes. And I put /50, so it gives me, I think that's the last 50 recent changes that show up. So that makes it really simple to give me the page with the recent change on it. So I know any of the clients that have changes going on is recently done here. And we're actually going to look at test page 007. But one of the things that's really nice, I'm going to go expand this. And I set up test page 007 as an example in here. This wiki detail logs everything because all the logs can be change history is very well logged in wikis. It tells you exactly what you changed. You can easily go back and look at a specific change from a specific user. So I know who edited anything in the wiki, and if they edit it and they edit it wrong, like, you know, for example, if someone thought they set the password to be something new, but they never actually changed it, that actually had happened once. The password change didn't save, but they did save it in a wiki. No big deal. Just roll it back. Roll the wiki back. We can see what the previous password is. It doesn't lose that information. Same with files. If someone goes and deletes a file, we can always go back and restore any of those files. I don't have any purging turned on this, and I believe that's the default. I don't think I had to change anything to do that. It queues and makes a deleted page of files, but does not have any way to purge those out other than going into the command line and actually deleting them out of the file system directly. So this is what a client page would look like, and all this is filled in. We put a client summary at the top. Are they part of our MSP plan? Because we're kind of a mixed environment. We don't mind having break-fix clients, but obviously if they're MSP, they're going to get more of a priority service, and we also have better insights. We know they're going to be in the dashboard, so when they call, we look them up. The wiki is searchable, and you can actually add it to your Google toolbar at the top. So when you type in wiki, I can actually find the clients like test page 007 just like that. It'll bring me right to the page, or search from here. It's all cross-index and searchable, and it auto-completes. That's just a built-in feature of the Wikimedia. So client summary here at the top. What email do we provide them? Web hosting, backup. That's the email G Suite email is either Office 65 or G Suite. We actually have some clients have mixed environments because they own multiple sites, and one site's on one. We deal with a lot of craziness. We also will put in there who's managing it, because we actually have a client that self-manages because they want to. They feel better in control of it. We're fine with that. That leads to the problem of when an employee will call us and have a problem, we always have to defer back to whoever's managing it. We have one that the office manager has decided that we don't need the password to. That's a whole nother discussion, but we just kind of roll with how clients are. Now, the contents page is built automatically. I'll show you the source here. No need to build a contents page. It's just not in here. That is automatically generated once you have a few headings. Now this lets me jump to certain headings. We also, as we put all the tables in, have them set to collapsed. And the reason for that is it just makes a cleaner look. And all their passwords aren't just, some of these get really long if they have a list of different servers. So if they have hosting, there's the cPanel, WordPress, G Suite. This is all generic information in here. Their firewalls, Windows servers, and we'll repeat the server if there's multiple logins for it. So we may have different admin logins in there. Printers, the devices, the location, IP address, username, password for the printer, and what the device name might be. Now this is the SolarWinds or iDrive. Both of them support. And there's a few other backups that have different clients that are using. This is just the most common ones. iDrive is when they want to manage it themselves. We don't set it up for them, but if we can, we'll track the passwords in case we ever have to restore something for them. The SolarWinds product I did a review of. You can find it on my YouTube channel. That one, when we manage it, we put it all in here. It makes it very easy so when we understand what each company is. Now, that's really important because what's not kept in the SolarWinds panel or the iDrive, if you're using full encryption for compliance, the key you create, the AES key, so it's encrypted before it leaves the computer, you really have to keep track of that key, because if you lose that key, you can't do a restore. There's no way to restore directly from the dashboard without the AES key on the local machine. Software licenses, another thing we track, where they registered random things to, because it seems that clients can't keep track of that at all. And see, we use this even for our non-managed clients, because if we have information and we do a project for them, we still document that project and save it. That way, as of the time we did it, we have all the information. And clients seem to often immediately lose all the information. And this is very handy for us because we just had a client, they replaced their computer, the other one died, they did it themselves, they called us, they're like, we don't have QuickBooks. We had their QuickBooks information from when we installed it a year ago. It's already in here. So it makes it really easy for that. Now, we've installed the visual editor, and that's the part that was a little bit tricky to install, and I'll show you how it works. So the visual editor, as you can see, nothing really seemed to change, but it lets me right away start editing and inserting things. Now, we always throw a couple pictures in there. These are some random ones, a couple I found on the internet, and I put them in for the client. But we'll actually put pictures sometimes of different things in the comm room. That way, if they call us, we can look at their comm room and know what it should look like and say, hey, this is the box you need to reset or unplug, or this light should be green if it's in what's the color of the light. That little information is going to be off to the side here. Sometimes we have multiple photos because we have a few fast food places that we support, and it's got to be visual for some of them. A lot of times we take pictures of what's plugged in where, because that's our biggest problem is they just unplug stuff. So here's how you edit a table. If I wanted to insert a below, I could just make another row just like that and add information to it. And the same thing if I want to get rid of that row, I can just go in here and delete row. Same thing for here, or here, or anywhere. And then we go to properties, and this is where you choose if it's collapsed and if it's collapsed initially. So if I didn't want that table to be collapsed, I do that. And like this one, for example, we don't have it collapsed because we want it right there at the summary. As soon as we hit the client, we know, those couple little details about them. And this is a general template. Because this is a wiki, there is easily different ways we do things for different clients. For example, if I wanted to insert another heading right here, notes for software, And we could just put notes for how a software install works. And that's really important because some of our clients have weird tools that they use. And we have one of them we got a documentation for of the services that have to be stopped every time we load an update to their software that runs their carpet company. There's a few simple steps. They're not real hard to do, but it's important that we have the notes in there because you've got to put a couple key things that are odd. So we have the notes for how that software install works. So it makes it really easy just to then add those notes. And you can put it, we have a couple of them, we've went as far as put screenshots in, and by putting screenshots in, it makes it really, really easy. So when someone else has to do that same thing later, we can go reference that software install for that client and know exactly how it's done. So you do that and save changes, and it confirms that you're saving. It's going to log that I saved it. Now let's show you how a password change looks real quick. So we're going to go ahead and go back to editing. And we'll change this to another, oh, I got to spell it right. Another password. We'll just hit save, save. Now we're going to go back to the main page. Well, we're just going to go right to the recent changes page. And we can click on it. And we can see directly that password change I just made. So this was the old password. This is on, it shows it in line 22. So I can see that, and if I want, I can go ahead and restore it and roll back the edits really quickly. So I can go back to older edits and kind of walk through the different edits we made. So here's some of the stuff I did there. Notes for software install was changed. And this makes it really nice for tracking everything that's going on at this particular client. So I can have the entire history. I know who did the history. It tracks each user, and I know the differences that were made for this client. So it's very well tracked. Now the nice thing is with security, it's all internally hosted. This is all physically one virtual server in our box, very locked down. I have problems a little bit because just throwing it all in some third party, one, that third party becomes a very hot target for hackers because, well, everyone has all their documentation in the same system. The second problem is that it becomes a problem if that company goes down. I mean, hopefully they don't go down and don't have a problem, but if they do, you immediately end up with potential security issues for yourself. You can't service your clients if they go down. You don't know what happened to the data if they go down. And for disclosure, would they reveal if they got compromised at all? You know, that's another thing because it would devalue their company. So there's a lot of this. You know, for example, the Yahoo, they didn't want to disclose they were compromised because they were trying to sell the company. So that's one of the reasons we host it all internally. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you is how the files work in this, which is really simple. Now, we had to make some modifications, and at the end, I'll show you the config file that we modified so you can see it. The file modification is allowing it to do more than just images, because that's the default. Now, the one thing about it is the visual editor doesn't do the best job of handling non-image files. So I usually, when I want to add an image file, you just go right here to Files and edit the source. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to drag a file in. So we're using the drag and drop tool. And I'll have all the plugins that I'm using listed. So we do that, upload this file, insert link, save. And there we go. There's the first file, there's the second file. Maybe we want to make it prettier. So we'll put a line break between them. There we go. Now there's the files, and I could have named it something different, but now I can see this file and any other config files that we upload for their system. These are the ones for pfSense, but whatever their config files or whatever they're using, whether it's UniFi or whatever, we upload those files to here so we have a history. Now we can replace those files, so every time we update their firewall, we go ahead and put a latest copy in here so we have their copy on file. Very handy keeping that in here, because when we do have to replace things like a firewall, we just run in here, we can grab the config, push the config to the firewall, and when we get it out there, we just plug it in. So if the firewall dies, we just pull from the config that we have in our customer file, and we can restore it. Or when someone else plays with the firewall that's not us and breaks it, then we easily have a restore. That's happened before too. Clients sometimes, because they won't want passwords to things, I'm not going to deny them their passwords, and then they play. that's a whole nother. One of them just went in and to the console and reset it on thinking that was what they needed to do, and they cleared all the settings. Easy to solve. Copy this file over and restored it back to the last change. So that's pretty much how it's set up. Now let me show you a little bit inside of what plugins we're using. All right, so as far as the plugins go, we left the default extensions that came with it in here, which is Cite, Cite This Page, Gadgets, Parser Functions, Poem, and a few others, Rename User. All pretty straightforward stuff. The uploader in here is the MS Upload, Wiki Editor, OAuth for the two-factor authentication, and then the bigger extension in here, the one that's a little bit trickier to load but just follow the work instructions, is called the Visual Editor. Now the Visual Editor, I have it all set up to enabled here, so these are the settings for that, which is nothing special, but this is the part that's important. This WG virtual rest config modules parsoid forward cookies equals true. You have to forward the cookies if you set up a private wiki. So your login token allows the parsoid server to talk to the wiki on your behalf. That's an important, this was the only line that was really missing for me to make it work. And it's confusing because it doesn't give you an error that's easy to trace. So that was my little oversight, because it was in the documentation I found, but it wasn't as obvious. And what Parsoids is Parsoid is a module that allows, I believe it pulls all the files, pulls all the wiki data into the visual editor into like a Java stream to make editing a lot easier. So if you go to set that module up and you set up a private wiki like I am, make sure you have this WG virtual rest config modules. The other thing to note is I have it on 8142. If you read through the documentation, that changes with what your server using. We run Debian, therefore it's 8142 is where Parsoids loads on. It loads apparently on 8000 on some of the other ones, I think is what I read in the documentation. But just make sure you're paying attention to the port numbers, because, well, that's really important. The other things we have is the array of files that we allowed, UNF for UniFi, CFG, zip files, ODG, and a few other things in there. So text files, XLS, so those are different things. Log files we sometimes zip, because sometimes we'll keep a log file for something that we may want to look at later. And everything else is just the default permissions for like the visual editor in here. So there's a couple. We just pasted in all the default settings on here, which defaults to using it, which is what we wanted. So that's how the visual editor works. Now the last thing I'll show you here is, actually just Q, we didn't change anything, is pasting in a spreadsheet. So here's a stock tracking sheet that I was playing with inside of Google Docs, and I can just go here and do a copy, and then we're going to go and edit this page. And just do a paste. It's a standard wiki table. Now, one of the things I'll show you, if you look at this, we're going to go ahead and save the changes. Save. And when we look at the source, class wiki table symbol. Please note, it only copied the data, none of the HTML formatting, none of the embedment, anything like that. So this is all just pasted right in. And that's really handy, because you don't want it to be linking externally. Now you can link externally, which is kind of cool, and we've done that for a few systems where we want to link directly to a page and have it change, but it's kind of cool that you can do this. Well, I can't really say have it change, it just you can just put the links in. But this is kind of cool. So instead of embedding, it doesn't support iframes that I know of. It's not embedding the Google Doc, it is just copying that data. So if we have a client that has a bunch of data that we put all into a spreadsheet, which of course if it's ever going to Google Docs, in case anyone's wondering, it's non-confidential information. It's sometimes just, IP lists and convenience when we're there at the client. Then we come back here and we just paste it right into the wiki and makes life easy. It also supports pasting, I believe, fine from other things like Excel if you use Excel. But pretty cool that you can do that. Another side note for those of you using Screen Connect, it will do this too, and this is kind of novel. So if we go here, I'm going over and grabbing my computer. All right, now I got a copy of the link directly to my computer, and if you don't know this in Screen Connect, if you filter for a computer and then copy the link at the top because it changes, so right there is a link to my computer at home, and then when I click it, it's in Screen Connect, which I'm already logged in, and I can get right to my computer. And yes, my home computer is referred to as Tom Lord's PC because my employees thought that was funny. And yes, some game, whatever my kid was playing, is what's on there because it's my gaming computer at home. So it's kind of novel the way you can do that, and it's handy because sometimes when you're in there, we link to each one of the client servers in Screen Connect, so we can directly jump right into the server. It still have to be logged into Screen Connect, but it creates a really handy quick link. Okay, here's the server, and here's a link right to the server, so we can get right to the thing we need to do. Been real happy with that feature. And it's, once again, it's all about servicing the client fast. And the quicker you can have data at the ready and have the answers you're looking for, or being able to have a client go, hey, I'm having a problem with this thing, jumping to that client page with the right documentation, being able to get right into the server and have all the information and credentials right at your fingertips is very convenient. And very scary because there's a lot of information, a lot of data for a lot of clients in here, which is why we are really strict about how this is accessed and that we keep it in-house. And I know there's a lot of companies offering external storage for all this. I'm just worried a little bit about that. That's why we decided to do it all in-house. So that's how we're using this Media Wiki here in 2017 of August. If we change how we use things, maybe I'll do another video. Questions and comments, concerns. Someone told me this is an absolutely horrible way to do it, but I said, okay. And they never really followed up. And I said, what's a better way? And there was just dead air. People love telling me I'm doing things wrong. As I've always said, if I'm doing it wrong, let me know how to do it right. That would be great so I can improve. There are some other companies that offer internally hosted things. This is the only open source one that I'm aware of. And I say aware of because, well, there's probably something else out there I'm just not aware of. It's a big world out there. Anyways, if you like the content here, like and subscribe, and questions and comments, leave them below. Thanks.